The night was quiet, but it was not peaceful. The forest at the edge of the small human town felt alive with danger. Every tree shook as if something heavy moved between them. Every branch snapped like bones breaking under pressure. And in the middle of that darkness, a small alien girl ran for her life. Her feet were bare. Her breaths were fast, and her silver-blue skin was marked with dirt and cuts. She looked no older than 14 in human years, but her eyes glowed softly like distant stars. Fear made them even brighter. Behind her, the forest growled. Not animals. Not humans. Something else. She could hear them: heavy steps, slow breathing, deep growls that vibrated through the ground. Creatures taller than trees. Creatures she had escaped from only minutes ago. Creatures that hunted her without mercy. She did not know their word in the human language, but in her language, they were called Ravagers, monsters created for hunting, tracking, and killing. And now, they wanted her. Her heart thumped painfully as she pushed through bushes, her legs shaking. She had been running all night. She had no strength left. Her body hurt, her lungs burned, and her vision blurred. But she forced herself to keep going, because stopping meant death. Up ahead, through the branches, she suddenly saw something strange: warm lights, glowing windows, houses, a human neighborhood. She had heard stories about humans, but she had never seen one. Still, human light meant safety. Monsters feared human noise, human metal, human fire. With the last bit of her strength, she ran toward the fence of the closest house. Her hands trembled as she pushed the gate. Luckily, it was loose. It creaked open slowly. She slipped inside and hid behind a wooden shed in the backyard, pressing her back against it. Her whole body shook. She covered her glowing eyes with her hands. She tried to breathe quietly, but fear made her breaths shaky and loud. Then she heard its soft footsteps. Small, light, not a monster. Something warm sniffed her hand. She froze, slowly. She looked down. A tiny creature with a wrinkled face and big round eyes stared up at her. A pug, brown fur, wagging tail. A small, warm body that smelled like comfort. It tilted its head as if asking, "Are you okay?" The alien girl had never seen such a creature, but the pug did not bark. Instead, it licked her hand gently, her eyes filled with tears. This was the first kind thing she had experienced in days. The pug slowly sat beside her and pressed its small body against her leg, as if telling her she was safe here, as if protecting her from the darkness. She wrapped her arms around the tiny dog. Her fear softened a little. Her breathing slowed. The pug's warmth felt like sunlight on her cold skin. But outside the fence, the forest moved again. A shadow tall as a house passed between the trees. Leaves shook violently. The Ravagers were here. The pug sensed danger. Its fur stood up. It growled, a tiny but brave sound for such a small creature. The girl held her breath. Her glowing eyes reflected the darkness. She whispered in a shaking voice, "Please, don't find me." A heavy thud shook the ground. Something landed just outside the fence. Claws scraped the wood. The monster's long shadow stretched over the backyard. The girl shut her eyes tight. Then a door opened behind her. Light spilled across the ground. A human man stood in the doorway, holding a cup of coffee, looking directly at the alien girl and his pug curled up together. His eyes widened in shock. The girl's breath stopped, and the monster outside growled louder. Cliffhanger. The human must choose run away, or save the terrified girl hiding with his pet. Mark had woken up early, hoping to enjoy a quiet morning. He stepped into his backyard with a cup of warm coffee, expecting to see his pug, Milo, sniffing around the grass like he always did. But instead, he saw something he couldn't explain. A trembling girl, silver blue skin, glowing eyes, and Milo sitting beside her like she was his best friend in the world. Mark froze. The girl froze even. Milo froze, then wagged his tail once, as if proudly saying, "Look what I found." The girl slowly raised both hands, palms open, showing she had no weapon. "Peace," she whispered, voice cracking. "Don't hurt me." Mark's heart thudded. She didn't sound dangerous. She sounded terrified. Before he could speak, a low growl rolled across the fence. It was deep, heavy, and wrong. Not from any animal he knew. The wooden panels rattled like something huge pressed against them. Milo growled back, but this time his small body trembled. Mark's eyes darted to the fence. He saw a long shadow stretching across the backyard. Something big was out there. Something breathing hard. Something waiting. The girl whispered, "They found me." Her voice was so full of fear that Mark felt it in his bones. Without thinking, he stepped forward. Inside. Now, the girl hesitated. She didn't trust him. Why would she? She didn't know humans. She didn't know if he was kind or cruel. But Milo barked once and nudged her leg toward the house. She followed Milo. Mark grabbed her arm gently and rushed her inside. He slammed the door shut, locked it, and dragged a chair in front of it for extra. Weight thump, something hit the other side. Hard. The girl flinched and covered her ears, as if the noise hurt her more than him. Mark didn't know what was happening, but he knew one thing. She was in danger. Real danger. She crouched in the corner of the living room, hugging Milo tightly. The dog pressed his warm body against her, as if protecting her with his tiny size. Mark knelt down slowly, trying to look calm even though his heartbeat was loud. "Okay? Talk to me. What's out there?" She shook her head. "No human word. Ravagers. They hunt. They never stop. Why are they hunting you?" Her eyes filled with tears. Because I escaped." Escaped from what? She looked toward the window, where the shadow moved like a shifting nightmare. "From them. From my own people. From a cage. From darkness." She struggled to speak, but forced herself. "I ran. They chased me. They follow my light." "What light?" She pointed to her chest. Under her skin, Mark saw a soft glow, faint but alive, like a small star beating with her pulse. He stared in shock. "Close your lights," Mark whispered. "I can't," she cried softly. "It grows with fear." Mark quickly grabbed a blanket and wrapped it around her, covering the glow. She gasped at the warmth but didn't resist. The growling outside grew louder. Something dragged claws across the wall. The sound made every nerve in Mark's body tighten. He moved to the window carefully and peeked through the curtain. He regretted it instantly. A tall shape 7 feet at least stood in the backyard. Its body was thin like metal bones wrapped in black skin. It had no eyes, just 3 glowing slits on its face, pulsing like fire. Claws long as knives scraped the window glass. Mark's breath caught. The creature lifted its head slowly, sniffing. Searching, the girl whispered behind him, "Sunrise. They come stronger at sunrise." Mark swallowed hard. He had no weapon, no plan, no idea what these things were, but he looked at the girl, trembling, crying, clutching his tiny pug like it was her only friend, and something inside him decided for him. "I'm not letting anything take you," he said quietly. The girl stared at him. Shocked, Milo barked once in agreement. Mark braced himself against the door. Cliffhanger. The creature's claws began cutting through the window frame. The window frame. Cracked like dry wood in a fire. Mark stepped back, pulling the girl behind him while Milo barked in panic. The creature outside dragged its claws slowly across the glass, testing its strength. Each scrape sounded like metal tearing through bone. The girl trembled so hard the blanket around her shook. Her glowing heartbeat pulsed brighter under the cloth. And the Ravager reacted instantly. It turned its head toward the door and growled. "They feel my fear," she whispered in terror. "They smell it." Mark knelt and put a hand on her shoulder. "Then you stay behind me. Understand?" Her shining eyes stared at him. No one had ever stood between her and danger before. The idea confused her and warmed her, but there was no time to think. A heavy thud shook the roof, followed by slow, crawling steps. Mark froze. Something else was up there. Another Ravager? The girl's voice cracked. "They surround us." Mark grabbed the nearest things he could use as weapons: an iron fire poker and a heavy flashlight. They felt useless, but better than nothing. Milo stayed glued to the girl's side, his tiny growls trying to sound brave. Mark whispered, "We need to move." He pointed toward the basement stairs. "Down there, we can hide." But the girl shook her head violently. "No hide. They break walls. They hear breathing. They—" Suddenly, another sharp sound interrupted her. Tap, tap. Something was tapping the kitchen window. Lightly. Too lightly, Mark crept forward and peered around the corner. A second Ravager crouched there, tapping the glass with a single claw like a predator teasing its prey. Every tap made Mark's skin crawl. The creature tilted its head sideways in an unnatural way, sniffing the air. It smelled the alien girl through the walls. "It knows," Mark whispered. A deep rumble vibrated through the floor. The one on the roof scratched along the shingles, dragging something heavy, a tail. A weapon. Mark couldn't see it. The girl covered her ears. "They call to each other, they say. She is inside." Mark felt fear for the first time in years. Not normal fear. Fear for someone else. He had to protect her. But how? He looked around the room. Nothing useful. No guns. No strong locks. Just normal household things against monsters built for hunting. Then Milo barked sharply and ran to the hallway. Mark turned. One of the Ravagers was trying to force its way through the front window. The frame buckled inward. He acted fast. He grabbed the girl's hand. "Upstairs. Now?" She obeyed without question this time. They rushed up the stairs, Milo following close behind. The house shook as multiple Ravagers pressed against the walls. Upstairs, Mark locked the bedroom door behind them. It wouldn't hold long, but it gave seconds. The girl panted, clutching her chest. "My light? They follow it? I'm sorry." "I'm sorry. Stop apologizing," Mark said firmly. "We're going to get through this." He grabbed a thick comforter and wrapped it around her again, covering every bit of light. She hugged it tightly, hiding her glow. But the moment he turned around, he saw something that froze his blood. The window, a long, clawed hand, slowly appeared at the top of the frame. The monster had climbed up the side of the house and was dragging itself across the wall like a giant spider. Its glowing slits stared directly inside. Mark stepped in front of the girl again. His muscles shook, but he held his ground. The Ravager pressed its face against the glass. Cracks spread outward like thin veins. The girl whispered, They won't stop. Not until sunrise." Mark turned to her. "Why sunrise?" She swallowed. "Because at sunrise, something inside me changes." "What changes?" She opened her mouth to answer, but the answer never came. Crash. The Ravager smashed its fist through the window. Glass rained across the room. The creature's arm shot inside, reaching blindly for the girl. Milo threw himself at the monster's arm, biting with everything he had. Mark didn't think. He swung the iron poker with all his strength. Cliffhanger. The Ravager pulled itself halfway through the window. and the room filled with its monstrous growl. Asterisk. The Ravager's arm smashed through the broken window like a huge black spear. Glass scattered across the floor, sparkling in the dim light. Its claws curled and reached blindly, searching for the girl. Every breath it took sounded like a furnace pulling air through metal pipes. Mark didn't think. He swung again harder. The iron poker slammed against the monster's forearm with a sharp clang. But instead of hurting it, the Ravager barely flinched. Its skin wasn't skin at all, was something else, something hardened. Something built for war. Milo barked furiously, jumping and biting the Ravager's arm. His tiny teeth sank into its black flesh. The monster jerked, surprised by the sudden pain from such a small creature. The girl, wrapped in blankets, crouched behind Mark. Her glowing eyes peeked out, wide with terror. "Run," she whispered. "We need to run." Mark grabbed her wrist. "We're not letting it in." But the Ravager pushed harder. The window frame bent and tore. Its head appeared next, squeezing through, glowing slits burning with hunger and purpose. A second Ravager climbed onto the roof outside, its weight shaking the ceiling above them. The girl gasped. "More come. They smell more." The whole house trembled. Mark's brain raced. They couldn't fight. They couldn't hide. They needed to escape. He pulled the girl toward the hallway. "Attic, we go up." She nodded, clutching the blanket tightly. Milo followed, his small paws moving fast. Mark pulled the string hanging from the ceiling, and the attic ladder dropped open with a loud creak. Too loud. The Ravager outside roared, sensing movement. Mark pushed the girl upward first. She climbed quickly, Milo right behind her. Mark grabbed the ladder to climb, but a clawed hand grabbed his ankle. Mark lost his balance. The Ravager yanked, its strength terrifying. Mark slammed onto the floor, pain shooting through his ribs. "Mark." The girl cried, reaching down to him. He twisted his body and kicked with his free leg, hitting the monster's face. It let go just long enough for him to grab the ladder and scramble up. Milo barked desperately, trying to bite the air near Mark's shoe as if helping. The attic was dark and dusty. Mark shut the attic door behind them, just as the Ravager slammed into it from below. The entire floor shook. Dust rained down from the ceiling. The girl pointed to a small attic window. "There, roof. We go roof." Mark didn't argue. He punched the old wooden latch until it snapped. The window opened. Cold night air rushed in. He helped the girl climb out first. She slipped slightly, but he held her arm firm. Milo squeezed through next, sliding onto the slanted roof tiles. Mark climbed out last, pulling the window shut behind him. Below them, the Ravagers gathered around the house. Their shadows stretched across the yard like moving smoke. Their glowing slits turned upward, tracking the girl's heartbeat even through the blanket. "We must go," she whispered urgently. They call 2 more. But the roof was high. The jump would hurt. The ground looked far away in the moonlight. Mark scanned the area. Then he saw the garage roof connected to the main house at a lower angle. "Go that way," he said, pointing. They moved carefully across the slanted tiles. The roof creaked under their weight. One Ravager jumped toward them, claws scraping the wall as it climbed fast. The girl slipped. Her foot slid on the tiles. Her body tilted forward, heading straight for the yard below. Milo barked loudly. Mark lunged and grabbed her arm just in time. He pulled her back up with every bit of strength he had. She gasped in shock, staring at him with wide, glowing eyes. "You saved me," she whispered. "No time," Mark said through heavy breaths. "Move." They reached the garage roof and slid down into the backyard. The Ravagers screamed a shrill hunting sound that cut through the night. Mark grabbed the girl's hand and ran. Milo raced beside them, barking non-stop. They reached Mark's truck. Mark shoved the girl inside, jumped into the driver's seat, and turned the key. The engine coughed. Again. Nothing. The ravagers rushed toward them like shadows with claws. Cliffhanger. The truck refused to start, and the monsters were only seconds away. Asterisk, the truck's engine coughed again, weak and hopeless. Mark hit the steering wheel. Come on. But the old truck refused to start. Outside, the ravagers sprinted across the yard fast, silent, deadly. Their claws scraped the ground as they closed in around the truck like a hunting circle. The girl curled in the passenger seat, hugging Milo, tears forming in her glowing eyes. They reach me. They feel my blood awake. Mark looked at her. What does that mean? She couldn't answer. Or maybe she didn't want to. Her breathing grew faster. The glow under her skin pulsed brighter, spreading from her chest to her arms. It was like liquid light moving through her veins. Milo whimpered, nuzzling closer to her. Mark tried the key one last time. The engine clicked but stayed dead. Then the first ravager slammed into the side of the truck. The metal dented inward like paper. Mark's body jerked from the impact. Another ravager jumped onto the hood, its glowing slits staring straight at the girl through the windshield. The girl screamed. They come because of sunrise. What happens at sunrise? Mark shouted back. Her eyes flickered like stars. My change. My awakening. They must witness it. Mark didn't understand, but he didn't have time to ask. The sky behind the trees slowly brightened with the first faint line of dawn. And when that first strip of light touched the horizon, the girl gasped and fell forward as if struck. Her skin lit up. Bright, brighter, so bright. Mark had to shield his eyes. The ravagers stopped. Every one of them froze in place. Their claws lowered. Their heads bowed. Their glowing slits dimmed like candles shrinking in the wind. Mark blinked in confusion. What are they doing? The girl trembled violently. They kneel. Mark looked again. The ravagers, terrifying, unstoppable, vicious creatures, were kneeling in the dirt around the truck. Kneeling like soldiers. Kneeling like worshippers, the girl clutched her chest, crying out, "They are not hunters. They are my guards." Mark felt the world tilt. Guards. They tried to kill you. No, she sobbed. They chased to protect me, to bring me back before sunrise. They know what I become. Mark stared at her glowing body, shining brighter with every breath. What? What are you becoming? The girl's voice broke. Something I don't want. A huge ravager stepped forward and placed its clawed hand on the ground in front of the truck, bowing lower, showing obedience, not hunger. Mark felt chills run down his spine. These monsters weren't hunting her, they were escorting her. She wasn't their prey, she was their purpose. Her breathing grew harder. Light poured from her skin like waves. I am heir to my people. At sunrise, my power wakes. They must return me to the Empire. Milo barked softly, confused. The girl looked at Mark, eyes shining brighter than the sun rising behind her. I felt danger here. I thought they wanted to end me. But they wanted to protect the future queen. Mark's mouth went dry. You're a queen. Not yet, she whispered. Sunrise completes it. Then the ground shook. A beam of light shot down from the sky, vertical column of white-blue energy that split the clouds. The ravagers bowed deeper, their heads touching the ground. The girl stared upward in fear. My people. They found me. Mark stepped out of the truck slowly, shielding his eyes. Something massive moved behind the beams, something huge enough to block the early sunlight. A ship the size of a mountain, descending. The girl clutched Mark's arm tightly. They come to take me. Mark tightened his grip on her hand. Not without me. The beam expanded. Wind blasting across the yard. Cliffhanger. A towering alien figure stepped out of the beam armor. Glowing eyes locked on the girl. Asterisk. The wind blasted across the yard as the alien beam widened, glowing white-blue like a second sunrise. Mark shielded his eyes while Milo barked at the giant silhouette forming inside the light. The Ravagers stayed kneeling, claws pressed to the ground, bodies trembling with respect. The girl clung to Mark's arm. Her glowing skin dimmed slightly, as if the presence in the beam pulled her power toward it. A towering figure stepped out 7 feet tall. Armor plated with silver lines. A long cloak flowing behind like floating dust. Its helmet unfolded piece by piece, revealing a sharp, regal face with pale markings that matched the girl's skin. His eyes bright silver locked on her instantly. He was not a hunter, not a Ravager. He was something far more important. The girl whispered in terror, "Royal Guard Commander, my mother's strongest soldier." Mark stiffened. "Your people sent him to take you back." She nodded slowly. "Or punish me for running." The commander's heavy boots touched the ground with slow, controlled steps. Every Ravager bowed deeper, almost lying flat. Even Milo fell silent, sensing power beyond anything he had seen. The commander approached the girl and placed a fist over his chest, bowing. "Your Highness, the rising light has begun. We feared the Ravagers failed to find you, yet you live." The girl shook. "I ran. I didn't want the awakening. I didn't want the throne." The commander lifted his gaze. The throne does not wait for desire. It waits for destiny. Mark stepped between them before he could stop himself. "She doesn't want to go with you." The entire world seemed to freeze. The commander slowly turned his head toward Mark, human. His voice was low, controlled, but powerful. "You stand between royalty and duty." Mark swallowed, but didn't move. "She's scared. She didn't understand what was happening. She thought your monsters were trying to kill her." "Our Ravagers," the commander said calmly, "exist to protect our royal bloodline. Their purpose is to die before harm reaches her." Mark blinked. "Protect? They were trying to rip through my walls." The commander tilted his head slightly. "Had they wanted harm, your home would no longer stand." They restrained themselves. They only pursued her light. The girl looked at Mark helplessly. "I didn't know. I thought they wanted to end me." The commander knelt in front of her hand action, so shocking even the Ravagers looked up in surprise. "Your Highness, forgive our failure. You were meant to return before sunrise. Your awakening should have happened under your mother's eyes." The girl whispered, "I don't want the power. I just wanted to be safe." The commander replied gently, "You are safe. With us." Mark felt anger burn inside him. She was safe here too. The commander studied Mark carefully. "You protected her. A human with no armor, no weapon, no fear of death." "Why?" Mark looked at her, then at Milo curled against her legs. "Because she was alone. Because she was scared. Because she needed help. That's what humans do." The commander nodded slowly, absorbing the words. The child of the stars was guarded by the child of Earth. That is unusual. Milo barked proudly, as if agreeing. The commander then spoke softly to the girl. "Your mother asks for you. She waits on the ship." The girl's eyes filled with fear again. "Will she punish me?" The commander blinked once. A slow motion that almost looked like softness. "She will embrace you. She feared you lost." The girl looked at Mark. Her small fingers tightened around his sleeve. "I don't want to go alone." Mark gently placed his hand over hers. "You won't?" The commander watched the gesture with careful eyes. "By royal law, Anyone who protected the air during the rising light must be brought aboard for recognition. Mark's brows rose. So I can come too? The commander nodded. Yes. Milo barked loudly. The commander looked down at the pug. The creature also. Mark smirked. Good. Because he's not staying behind. The beam of light widened again, humming loudly. Follow, the commander said. The girl squeezed Mark's hand one more time. Together with Milo, trotting between them, they stepped into the blinding beam. Cliffhanger, high above, on the colossal ship, the alien queen waited. With tears already in her eyes. Asterisk the beam lifted them upwards, low, warm and bright, pulling Mark, the alien girl, Milo, and the commander into the sky. The world below shrank. Trees became shadows, houses became dots. And the Ravagers bowed until the beam fully vanished. Mark held the girl's trembling hand the entire way as they rose. Clouds glowed softly around them, and then suddenly they broke through the last layer of mist. Above them floated the massive alien ship. It was bigger than anything Mark had ever imagined. Long wings stretched across the sky like silver mountains. Blue energy veins pulsed across its surface. The structure hummed with ancient power, old as stars and heavy with history. The girl whispered, "Home." But her voice trembled with fear. The beam delivered them onto a wide platform inside the ship. The floor shimmered like glass, reflecting their shapes. Strange glowing symbols floated in the air, scanning the girl gently as if greeting their royalty. Armored guards knelt the moment she arrived. Milo barked at them, confused why giant warriors were bowing to a tiny girl. Mark held her hand tightly. "I'm right here." The commander stepped aside, allowing a new figure to approach. The alien queen, tall, elegant, glowing silver hair flowing like liquid light. Eyes warm and bright as the girl's, but ancient, filled with stories generations old. The moment she saw the girl, her strong royal expression broke. She ran forward. She dropped to her knees and pulled the girl into her arms. "My child," the queen whispered, voice shaking. "My light, my heart. I thought the darkness stole you." The girl cried into her mother's arms. "I was scared. I ran. I didn't want the awakening." The queen kissed her forehead, stroking her glowing hair. "You were not ready. I forced too much, too fast." She held her tighter. "But you lived, and someone protected you." Then the queen lifted her gaze, saw Mark. Human clothes. Dirt on his shirt, blood on his knuckles, exhaustion on his face. Yet he stood tall. The queen rose slowly and approached him. Mark swallowed hard. His legs felt heavy. He had no idea how to talk to alien royalty. I just did what anyone would do." The commander spoke. "No, human. You did far more. You faced Ravagers with nothing but courage. You shielded the air. You were willing to die for someone not of your world." The queen stepped closer. She placed a hand over her heart, a royal gesture of deep respect. "Human protector," she said softly. "Your bravery echoes across galaxies. You saved the one thing I cannot replace." Mark felt his face grow warm. She was scared. "I just helped." The queen studied him carefully. "And would you help her again? She needed you?" He didn't hesitate. "Yes." The girl grabbed his arm immediately. "I want him with us," she said firmly. "He is the reason I am alive." The queen smiled gently. "Then he will stay. By royal law, those who protect the air become part of our royal circle." Mark blinked. "Part of your royal circle?" The commander nodded. "You will live among us. You will be honored, trained, trusted, and never threatened." Milo barked proudly at the idea. Mark exhaled slowly. He thought of his quiet house, his lonely mornings, his simple life. Then he looked at the girl. Her glowing eyes, her small, hopeful smile. Her hand gripping his like he was the only safe place in the universe. He made his choice. "I'll stay," Mark said, "not for honor, not for power, for her." The girl hugged him tightly, relief pouring out of her. The queen placed a hand on both of their shoulders. "Then you are family now, human." The ship lights brightened, the engines hummed. Stars stretched across the windows like diamonds. A new chapter had begun, and from that day forward, the alien empire carried a message across every world. A human protected our future queen. For that, Earth will forever have our strongest shield. Mark looked at the girl, Milo sitting proudly between them, and whispered, "We're safe now." And for the first time, she believed it.